So excited to welcome you, my next guest. I know that we call you Zen Jen, but you're really Jen Durazio.
I am. That's
To
my name.
yes. So we'll call you Jen Durazio, and then all the people that get to know you can hook up with you later and call you Zen Jen.
I love it.
Yes.
Hi, everyone.
So
I'm so happy to be
welcome.
here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. And just to remind everyone of the mission of the New Earth podcast is to really be able to ignite the fire that lives in every single individual so that we can uplift humanity and really power everyone to be able to transcend all of these limiting systems that I just feel like everyone thinks that they don't have control over, so that we can start to co-create an earth that is rooted in harmony, love, joy, abundance. And so I've got Jen on because I know that we're going to go deep into transcending two systems, two of my favorite systems that I feel like we do need to transcend. We do need to be able to rebuild, which is so close to my heart. And it's the healthcare system and the school system. So Jen, I'll let you take it away with doing your own intro. I know we talked about you being the trailblazer of being the person to do your own intro. So welcome, Jen.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jen Durazio. I am a Reiki Master, and I'm focusing on what I love to do best. And I love learning. I love to share my knowledge, and I really love helping others. So, as a Reiki master, what I like to do is get people comfortable and really help and guide them to really just be their authentic selves. And the way that I do that is I connect with their energy. And then from there, I give them tips on how they can clear the toxins that they're holding on to, whether they're energetic toxins, where they can release that through journaling or through yoga and different kinds of movements, or they can start eating in different healing foods and really clear the pathogens that are blocking them and other toxins like heavy metals and get them out so that they can be their true authentic self. This is what I'm most passionate about, and I'm moving, taking little steps at a time so I can fully embrace being a spiritual being. But for now, also, I am a social emotional learning teacher in the public school system. And I teach children how to breathe, meditate, do yoga, and bring in different tools that help them regulate their emotions so that they have executive functioning skills and they can be leaders in this world.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I think it's going to be funny if we talk about how we first met.
Sure.
Because I know that you came to the first retreat that I ever did, and like the first night I had like all this to say, and kind of just had like a whole big first night of things that I was sharing. And I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. I can't believe I just did this. And it definitely took a lot out of me. And you were the one person, and you were like, I had just met you, and you were like, how about tomorrow? There's no speaking.
I was also exhausted when I went on that trip. I'm a single mom.
Like you
So,
are you're real.
I'm real. And then I'm like, I just need to downtime, relax. And she's like, let's talk about this. And I'm like, I definitely need to unpack a lot of things that she's bringing up. And I'm like, I also need to just be quiet and kind of like just lay on the floor and not move. Right.
So if you're comfortable with opening up about the first thing that you shared with us at the retreat was one of the most powerful stories that I ever heard of self-healing. And you were someone that was really in the trenches with, we'll call it like right now, and I'll let you take over and really describe specifically, what the elements were that you were working with. But it was essentially like a root chakra, like feminine issue, probably going up, even to like the second chakra and on probably even on into the third. And kind of just going to so many different doctors, never really getting the kind of information that you needed until you empowered yourself to be able to draw in a holistic approach. And that was one of the most powerful stories that I ever heard.
Sure, would love to share. When I was 29 years old, I had my first BV infection. BV is bacteria vaginosis.
Hmm.
So it's a very painful infection to have. It's in the
Yeah.
vagina. I might say vagina a lot, so let's everyone get
Okay, get ready,
on that one.
guys.
Vagina, vagina,
Vagina
vagina.
alert.
Well, my vagina, my poor vagina was dysfunctional for over a decade after my first bacteria vaginosis infection. They're very painful. For me, it would feel like I either had a rotating cactus in there and it was being pulled on both ends. There was a lot of burning and a lot of pain, or it felt like a rotating knife that was being pulled on both ends, a lot of pulling. Some women complain that they have a fishy smell. I wouldn't get that. It was just very burny and very painful.
Hmm.
And that would happen almost every month after my period. And then in between that, 2 weeks after I would get rid of the infection, I would get another just this painful feeling. And the doctor said that it was vulvar vestibulitis syndrome, which is this undescribable pain that women get. They don't know where it comes from. And I would want answers, right? I kept going to all these different doctors, like what is happening? And
Yeah.
I didn't really get straight answers. It was just, oh, you have an unknown pain. We don't know why you have chronic infection. Sometimes it just happens. And they would keep offering me antibiotics. The problem with the antibiotics is it infected my gut, which would throw my gut off. And then my gut was already,
Hmm.
I guess, unstable, it wasn't strong. I already had gut issues. And then the antibiotics, of course, made it worse. I was on all different probiotics. I kept trying. I would go to different pharmacists. I also started going to different nutritionists to help me, and I was doing all of their things and taking their supplements, which helped, but it wasn't getting me to the root cause. I
Wow.
would go sometimes months without getting infections, and then I would, and then there would be this voice that would say to me, "All right, I guess just this is just how my body is now." But then there was this other voice that said, "No, I don't accept this. There is an
Right.
answer." And
Right.
there was a time that I was at the gynecologist, which, by the way, I would fire doctors all the time. If you keep going to doctors and they don't give you answers, know that there's always other doctors out there. There was this one doctor, though, I would always go to him, but I would cheat on him. That's how I saw it. I'm like, all right, I'm cheating on my main doctor because you have to, right? You have to speak to different people if you want to get an answer. If you keep going to the same person and they're not giving you an answer, so you have to try other people. But this one doctor that I loved, and I kept him as my doctor, even though he tried helping me and he was very compassionate and always listened to me, he couldn't get an answer for me. But he did say this one time, "You are not a textbook case." And I thought,
Hmm.
I am a textbook case. I am. I fully believe that I was a textbook case. And I'm like, we're in the wrong textbook.
Yes.
So even though
Yes.
sometimes, like when I was feeling very weak and vulnerable and exhausted, I would think, okay, this is just the way my body is now. I have a dysfunctional vagina, right? And then there was that other times I'm like, no, I'm going to find out how to cure myself. Like there are answers. And then one day I came across the medical medium. I found him on Instagram. Somebody was sharing their story, how they were doing a cleanse. They were doing the 369 cleanse. And she shared the book, Cleanse to Heal. And I was like, all right, let me check this book out. And the book is all about healing anxiety and bloating and gut issues. So I'm like, I'm going to buy this book. I buy the book. In the back of the book, it has all different ailments. And you read, and he has a very little paragraph about it. And then different supplements that you can take, which are all natural. And I'm like, let me go to bacteria vaginosis. This is my problem.
Right.
A little bit on it. And then he explains in there how when women get their period and they're menstruating, their immune system drops like
Hmm.
75 or 80%. And then it's like, boom, that's why you're always getting these infections when you have your period, because your immune system is at its weakest because so much of your body goes to your menstrual system.
Just that piece of information alone is empowering.
Right. Very
Like
powerful.
just that alone. I feel like so many women who are hearing that right now are like, oh, okay, that's why, I get headaches, when I have my period. That's why like my back that like doesn't usually get triggered, too often gets triggered when I'm my period. Like all the things that like our usual default part of our system, that it can take us down happens just because we are experiencing a lowered immunity system at that time. And just knowing that it's so not scary then when you get your period. You just start to understand your biology.
And what happens is we all have different pathogens in our body, and
Right.
those pathogens are like, woohoo, party time. And then
Right. Right.
that's what's happening. They're
Wow.
just having their own little free-for-all,
Wow.
and your immune system isn't in a place where it can fight them down.
Wow.
And then, yeah, you get a headache, or oh, you're bloated, or you're cranky, you're irritable. It's all
Wow.
coming up and out. And
Wow.
behind all that are different pathogens or different
Mm,
toxins in your body. Like I said, the heavy metals, and then you're eating certain foods, right? When
right.
you have your period, you're
Right.
eating different foods normal that you wouldn't normally eat, and you're feeding the bad guys, and they're all like,
Right.
"Ah,
Right.
come on, eat
We'll call
me."
different foods, like me like kneeling in like the snack cabinet. I'm like eating while I'm kneeling, like, white chocolate covered pretzels and like it's
Right.
not a
So
good
it's so
look.
important to
Yeah.
know which foods feed the pathogens and
Right.
which foods starve the pathogens. And
Right.
then once you have that information, then you really have empowerment, and then you can have the
Mm,
ability to make different choices.
right.
So when I started following the medical medium and I started taking in his protocols, of course, you start off slow. Some of his protocols can be like if you're doing the 369 advanced cleanse, like that's a very rigid cleanse. So if you're open to it, then start there. If you're someone who's like, yo, I don't know about this, then he has the morning cleanse, or you could just start off by saying, okay, he's saying eggs are the number one food that feed pathogens. I'm going to start
Wow.
off by not eating eggs. So I was already gluten, soy, and dairy free because I was seeing nutritionists and they suggested that I do that, and it was helping tremendously.
Mm,
But like I said, when I started taking on these protocols, I did start removing eggs. But before I removed the eggs, I was so upset because I loved eggs. I was feeding my son eggs all the time. And I was
yeah.
convinced that eggs and this high protein diet that I was on was like the
Right.
champion move. Like, this is great for my health. And he said, no, that you should be eating more leafy greens and plants and that have
Mm,
high protein diets high in fat, and that slows the liver down from healing. And like I said, the eggs feed pathogens. So I did what any rational person would do when they're devastated that they can't have eggs anymore. I binged 8 eggs for 4 days straight for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My
I
son
can
was
see you
on,
doing that.
yeah, my son did it with me too. We only
Uh,
ate eggs like all day long. And then I was ready to break up with the egg.
yeah.
We gave, I
You
had
like made yourself sick with eggs, basically.
I wasn't ready to let go.
Yeah, yeah,
So it was like
yeah.
I had to
I got it.
smother myself with them
Yeah, yeah,
until I was like, all right, I
yeah,
can say goodbye to you now.
yeah. Like I'm gonna have eggs until I throw up, and then you're good. Done.
But yeah, I had to make sure that I had my hard-boiled eggs, my
Yeah.
scrambled eggs,
Yes. Yeah. I'm
over.
with you. I also really love eggs. Like I was vegan for a bit. Now I'm mostly vegetarian. Sometimes I have fish, but like I do feel like sometimes I've got to have my eggs. Like I get that, like nothing can replace that feeling.
Attachment,
Yeah. 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 It's probably childhood stuff.
comfort. But then I let go of the eggs and I was following his protocols and I
Mm,
started to do some of his other cleanses. And I got worse for a little bit because you're
mm,
stirring everything up. And then the infections were like coming a little quicker. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready. I went in all raw
mm.
and I was taking all of his supplements that he said. And I made this spreadsheet and I would check off the supplements and I was doing, different, like
Wow.
some of the protocols you could do are the shock therapy. So did some of the shock therapies and then boom, the infections went away. Thank you.
And how many years were you like on antibiotics, going to different doctors, like all that?
I believe like, let me see, I'm 44 now. I was probably 13 years of trying different things. And then when I
Wow.
went in with him, I
Wow.
did it in less than a year. I got rid of them.
Wow. That is phenomenal. And I just kudos to you for doing the research, doing the work, knowing that there had to be some kind of an answer out there. And I feel like that's how you were able to manifest it and attract it to you. And I mean, like from then on, I feel like it was almost like your purpose to have that kind of experience to become the wealth of knowledge that you now are. Because like, is that where then you started to discover like energy healing and Reiki and like movement and yoga? Like, did it all follow suit after that?
So it goes back into what I was saying. Like
Mm,
the more that I cleared out those pathogens,
mm,
my true identity just started to like come alive. It was almost like so behind the bacteria vaginosis, the medical medium, or Anthony Williams is his name, he said that's streptococcus. And
hmm.
I would always tell the doctors, I'm like, this is coming from my gut down. It's coming from my gut
Right.
down.
Right.
And they would kind of just look at me and then like you would, and I'm like, no, it's definitely coming from my gut down. Like I can tell, like I'm sitting here observing myself every month and I feel it like
Right.
right underneath my like breast area, but in the center. And then
Right.
it just kind of like tightens and squeezes and then you push down and I would get really bloated. And then I wake up in the morning and have an infection. And I always had gut issues, constipation since a child. That was the first thing that cleared up, constipation. Once I started
Wow.
drinking celery juice, I was never constipated again. And
Wow.
that was way longer than
Wow.
that was from probably from birth to I was to 42 years I was constipated.
Wow.
And boom, gone.
Yeah, that's like if you would you want to go into kind of how you know I know that you had talked about in the prep call how you kind of fell through the cracks as far as not having your other diagnosis, which was ADHD, correct?
Yes.
And how just because you went like all the way back to your childhood, that one of the first things that you had said in the prep call was that, it was this understanding that from a baby, like from the energy that was being given to you when your mother was holding you, it almost kickstarted then, like all of these things, which you have now uncovered to be able to finally live in your authentic power and be your truth. But would you want to go into that first to kind of
Sure.
explain? Yeah.
So when I was born, my mother had postpartum.
Mm.
And I felt that that energy, like when
Mm.
you are first born, you are so knowledgeable of the energy around you and you can really just feel it. And I just
Yeah.
felt like her energy was just seeping into me as a baby and then just growing up in that energy. And what happens is, you feel like, oh, it's normal. Oh, I have postpartum, it's
Mm.
normal. I just had my third baby. Oh, I'm behind. But she always struggled with anxiety. And then, she would have manic episodes and she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and she had thyroid problems. And I just saw her health kind of decline and her suffer through that. And you live in that energy and you embody it and you don't
Mm.
realize how much you hold on to that. And the more that I cleanse, like the more that I release that energy that I was holding on to, that I was in. And since she wasn't well, she wasn't able to be, I guess her best self though was her so sick. So she wasn't
Mm.
able to be there for me the way that I needed. A child needs their mother to be awake and their child needs their mother to have energy. And she wasn't able to provide that because she was sick. And when I went to school back in the 80s, they didn't have like special ed the way that it was. And I felt
Yeah.
that I was falling through the cracks. And like I kind of like, I'm a very intelligent person. So I was able to understand the material, but at the same time, like processing was difficult for me and staying focused and then going home and being in a home where your mother's sick, like my wellness started to decline. Like the time I was 14, I was anxious all the time.
Wow.
And, that age, you start going out with your friends, you're in the woods, you
Yeah.
start drinking, you start
Yeah.
smoking pot. I started to lean on substances and then I became a substance abuser. But
Yeah.
once I started meditating, like I was able to start letting that go because I was feeding my soul good habits.
Mm.
Like, I was okay, instead of reaching for a joint, I'm going to meditate.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah. But how did you get to that? Like how do you go from, unfortunately being raised by a parent who's suffering with mental illness to you know, unfortunately needing to kind of numb out with substances at 14 to a meditator? Like where did the leap occur for you?
so for me, it was I needed a consequence. And
Hmm.
this consequence was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I was
Oh, yeah, I know this story.
Yeah, I was down at the Jersey Shore. It was Memorial Day weekend. I was down with friends that I knew since I was 14 years old. And we were hanging out, we were drinking, we were having a good time. And then this party was starting to get out of hand. People were doing different drugs. And I was at a stage in my life where I didn't want to partake in that. But there was still this little piece inside of me that was curious, because I was
Yeah.
with my childhood friends and I did drugs with them sometimes, but I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I leave the party and I go down to Manasquan. I was the first in Point Pleasant. So then I end up going back because that's where my car was. I wasn't able to drive home. I know these friends for years, so I'll just crash at their couch. So we were hanging out and we were smoking weed. And when I was gone, one of my other friends passed out on a neighbor's lawn. The neighbor was worried about the friend, so she had the police come back and knock on the door to check on her to make sure she was okay. It was almost 2 o'clock in the morning. People were coming back from the bar, so they just opened up the door, not realizing the police were there. There was a few of us smoking, hot potato. I ended up getting arrested with two other girls. And if you get arrested and you work for the Department of Education, you have to turn yourself in.
Oh my
When
God.
I turned myself in, I had to go to what was called the rubber room. It's like kind of teacher detention. You couldn't go to do your regular job and work with children. You had to be investigated and you had to wait till I went to court to settle everything up.
Oh my God.
So the fact that I got in trouble at work was like, no, like this is too far for me. And then I
And this
ended,
was just for pot. Like
right, this is just for smoking a
now that
little
it's
pot.
legal, like it's like such a ridiculous, like it's so ridiculous, but that's what needed to happen. Okay.
Right, on a Saturday night,
Yeah. I had to
not
get
at
arrested for
work.
pot on the Jersey Shore, no less.
Woohoo! I had my own Jersey Shore episode. It wasn't filmed, of course, but
Oh
my own.
my God.
And one of my friends said, "Oh, I've been going to a place that it helps." I'm like, "Help? I need help." So I ended up going to this meditation at a Buddhist Vihara temple with monks, and I started meditating. It was the hardest thing I ever did. I wanted to do like tumble salts on the floor because my ADHD was very noticeable.
But did you know then that you had ADHD? Like, did you yet have a diagnosis?
I did not have a
You
diagnosis, but
just
I
knew.
I knew I had ADHD. I knew I always had trouble focusing. And eventually I was like, I have to go see.
How old were you at that point?
I was like 30 years old. So I was
You
already
you
having
struggled with
second.
ADHD your entire life, became a teacher, did all the things, went to college, grad school, all that, like without a diagnosis and medication. Like
Right. I
it's
knew
like
that
with both arms tied behind your back and blindfolded.
I knew that I had a problem when I was in first grade. That was one of the questions the neurologist asked me. He's like, when did you first know you had a problem? I looked at him dead straight in the face. I was like, first grade. And he was very professional. He wanted to laugh. And he was just like, back then things were different. I was like, yeah. And then I had to go all the testing, and then they diagnosed me with ADHD. They refused to give me the medication, which I'm grateful for now. But I was like,
Mm.
no, no, you got to give me something. I can't do this
Right.
anymore. Like
Hit
it's
me.
enough.
Hit me. Yeah.
Hit me up, give me
Yeah.
it. I don't care. Give me the control substance. I'm happy that they didn't give me the control substance. And the woman's like, you made it this far. Like, no, like,
Right.
and I'm
Right.
like, okay. So I just went to my regular doctor and I started taking anxiety meds. And that
Mm.
helped me. But now that I know how to take in natural ways, like lemon balm is great if you're having anxiety and drinking some lemon balm
Yeah.
tea. And there's just natural ways that you can cope and heal your body. Mango is wonderful if you have a lot of
Mm.
anxiety. Bring in more mango.
I just bought mango today. That's so funny. And for everyone listening, I went to Jen 2 weeks ago for my first Reiki session after many, many years. When I was like, when I first got it, I think I was like still like so type A, like corporatized, like it like I was like, I don't get it. Like it's I don't get it. They're just like waving stuff over me. I don't know. And this time it was profound, really profound. And but the first recommendation was, do you have lemon balm tea? Like you got to get yourself some. And I've been drinking it ever since. And just that alone has helped me to calm my nervous system and some of the other things that you recommended, like as far as like, how can we take in foods that help us to stand in our power? Like if like now that I'm starting to get myself out there more and do lots of different things without getting overwhelmed and feeling confident just in my truth. And you're telling me such simple things that like we've all have access to. And when I have them, I feel super powerful and ready to take on the world. Like you told me to have I think it was ginger mixed with like spinach and lemon, and I do pomegranate. Like I'll do that all together. I don't know if you told me to do all that together, but I do that all together. And I feel like rocket fuel. And I'm like, why don't we know that? You know what I mean? Like instead of just having the coffee, you know,
Right.
and which just we just keep needing more and it dehydrates us and makes us jittery. Like, why don't we get more empowered with food? So I'd love for you to continue kind of along this path of like, what's your toolkit?
It depends on how I'm feeling. Like it changes all the
Mm,
time.
mm,
It's very important to know what to reach for and having the right resources.
right,
Like
right.
right now, I've been eating a lot of bananas, and bananas are very antiviral. They're great for the brain. And for me right now, you are coming into winter, right? We want to slow down. We want ease and
Mm.
all the go, go, go. And I'm taking care of my son and I have to go to work and I'm doing the Reiki on the side and actually have a brain cleanse coming up and I do wellness classes.
And yoga, you do all the things.
I do all the things, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just need ease. So I'll just eat like 3 or 4 bananas and I'll mash them up and I add a little walnuts and a little raw honey and a little cinnamon and I make it into like a dish. I make it into a meal and it's just easy. So right now I'm looking for things that are easy. Like maybe next week I'll make a soup and I'll just have that for dinner every day.
That's amazing. And so with that then, do you feel like and I know that it was a journey for you to get more into your authentic and intuitive self. Like, do you feel then once the physical blocks started to dissipate, it kind of then opened up like the upper chakras for you, which like opened up, like, oh, now I can start to like feel more or know more, receive, like divine messaging, or like when I do Reiki, I now can read an energy field better. Like, did it happen in succession that way?
So it's interesting because when I was a little girl, I was
Mm,
very connected. And I
mm,
remember my parents always being like, you can't talk to that person. Like, stop walking up and talking to people. You have to, have that awareness. They had fear. You can't just walk
yeah,
up to strangers. And I would think,
yeah.
but that's a good person. Like, why are you telling me not to talk to them? Like, they're a good person. I felt it.
You felt it.
And when I was a little girl, after my father's mother died, she came to the house. And when I would play in the basement, I used to talk to her. And then along the way, I lost that. Then
Mm,
when I started eating the right healing foods, that started opening up where I was like, oh, I really should go and get myself certified in Reiki and learn more because I
right.
am receiving information and I have knowledge of what's going on with other people because so like I feel their energy. Like I said, when I was born, I felt my mother's energy, like it's in me. So
Wow.
I'm like really just a sponge for energy and I wanted to learn how to protect my energy so
Right.
that I can have kind of like a light switch. I felt like I'm able to turn it on. Okay, I want
Right,
to feel you. No, I
right,
don't want to feel you right now because it's overwhelming. I could turn it off. So
right.
then I started to be able to open up more. And now I feel like I'm getting that back. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to talk to the angels more. So I am connecting more to my higher chakras and letting them in where I was like, when I was a little girl, I would just talk to them. Then I stopped and there was broken trust there. And I'm bringing that back.
That's amazing. I like when I met you a year ago, I feel like we talked a little bit about this, and I think you were still kind of in the fear place of like, well, what happens if I let it all in? Because you had said that when we were doing that walk to like we did a random walk to like the cemetery. We didn't plan on it, but we all like field trip to a cemetery. It was beautiful, that one. Remember, we took a picture of all the
I do
gravestones.
remember.
Um, and I remember because I'm similar to you, where I also can feel so much. And I remember in that moment feeling as though that was going to be something that you definitely wouldn't let get in your way. Like I know that like you would welcome in the energies so much more. And it's just, and I feel like that's a common story with so many people where we're kind of born, intuitive, listening to our heart, receiving information, seeing folks who passed. And then, when we get into kind of like the program around like school or our parents and, people telling us to like push our imagination down and our intuition falls away and our ability to, feel other people kind of just falls away because we kind of just become practical people who need to have real jobs. We think that, we can't have that power, which is our most powerful way of being. And it's so crazy to me because I hadn't had Reiki in such a long time. And I had so much suffering that particular week in getting, back out into the world bigger and bigger. And you know what I'm bringing up. And
Right.
I had listened to someone who was talking about past lives, and this person that I listen to often says things that I've been feeling for a long time. So I feel like I'm also divinely connected to her. And she was talking about how there's a lot of energy of people that, come back that, they take energy from their past lives and they need to transcend it still in this life. And then, they take a human birth here and they still have all those things that they're transcending from their childhood here and the past life. And she was talking about the biggest one, the most common one is the Holocaust, where she meets so many people who are bringing in lots of blocks of fear and still living in survival mode, still living with extreme anxiety and feeling as though they covered off on it from this lifetime and don't understand why they still have it. And she was like, it's important to recognize that there is still energy coming from past lives to solve for as well. And she said, and the other side is that some people were on the other side. Some people were, and I've never said this publicly at all, but I have had thoughts and feelings throughout my entire life that I was one of those people on the other side. And being raised Jewish and born into a Jewish family who was in the Holocaust, it's one of the hardest things for me to actually say this publicly, but I've felt for many years that in a past life I was on the other side. And she said it. And when she said it, it all came back to me. Like so much of it came back to me. And she said, now, if you're feeling that way, it's because you now know that you've come back to change the world. That's like your mission is to push so hard into that. But your thing to transcend is that you don't think you're worthy of it. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, that's exactly what I'm working on because I don't think I deserve it. Yet I have such a strong mission to change the world and to be of the light. And it made so much sense. And I was like, shit, I don't know what to do with this. And for some reason, I was like, I got to go to Jen. And I didn't know how much you transcended your energy and what you could read at this point because we hadn't really talked about it. But I knock on your door and you're like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, listen, I think I was a Nazi in my past life. And you were like, you know what? Come on in because you finished the story.
I'm like, yes, come in, sit down. I was like, well, I was a little boy in my past life and I hid in a room, petrified that you guys were going to find me and put me in the gas chamber and that I was going to be in a what's it called? Camp. And I was petrified all the time. And then somebody took me in and I hid in their house. And I did my session on her. And our biggest takeaway I came out with was like, I forgive you. Like, there is, like, I just forgive you. And it's okay. Like, it was a long time ago. And sometimes, we're all put in these situations and you had a job to do, and that was your job. And sometimes it's hard to say no, or you don't know what it was that you were going through, that
Right.
you were able to be that person and while you were there. But it served a purpose. And you might not see it today and you might not see it tomorrow. You might see it in your next life, what the purpose of that life was. But either way, as a person who hid and I carried that fear. And that came up for me
Mm,
with the whole mandate here, the vaccine mandate, and how, I couldn't go to work because I wasn't meeting their protocols and I was a threat to the health and safety of others. And if I didn't have this card saying that I was
mm,
safe to be a part of society, then I wasn't welcome. And, I was so petrified then that I was going to be put into a concentration camp.
wow.
And I forgive all
Wow.
those people too who
Wow.
felt like, the only way that I could be around you is I was vaccinated or I was a threat to the health and safety. Like, we're all humans and we have to remember to come from a place of love.
Yeah. That's really the entire thing. And it's like I always never really understood why I could literally feel the pain of people going through things, like feel so heavy and so hard for them until like all of that made so much sense, like this explanation. And I feel like what you just said, like it comes so full circle because we were divinely brought together to have that kind of a healing from other lifetimes. And only because we already agreed to the vibration of love. And like it's only in that vibration of love can we have that kind of healing, and that is our original self. Like that's what we're all trying to get back to. Like that's in a place of trust where like you let yourself, let in and open up to the energies, that for so many years you were closed off to. And I was the same. And only and this is kind of the power of us like collectively shifting, because like when we all do that, it's limitless how we can heal not only the pain from this life, but from all of the lives that we've lived, from all of our ancestral pain. And I feel like we need to start having those deeper conversations, and it's all rooted in love.
I agree.
Yeah.
And just like you said, getting back to being our authentic self, and our
Yeah.
authentic self comes from a place of love and light. And even before you said, as a child, you start losing your imagination. And that brings us into the school system. I worked for the
Mhm.
school system for a little bit more than 20 years. And I'm looking to leave the school system because it's not in alignment with what I practice and what I believe. So much so that I homeschool my son. I'm a teacher for the Board of Education, New York City Department of
And you
Education. And I say,
homeschool your
no, my
son.
son is not going to go there. And I could send him to a Catholic school, but I don't practice Catholicism. And they still get money from the Department of Education. So
Mm,
if I'm going to send them to a Catholic school who's getting funded by the Department of Education, they have systems in place there that I don't agree with, that
right.
they have to do as a school because they get funded by them.
Right.
And fortunately, where I am, they don't have Montessori schools because I would be open to that, but we don't have any in this area. So I homeschool him. That's the best option for me. And as a teacher, I'm watching it and seeing children being told, no, stand on line, you have to be quiet, raise your hand. There's still certain things that I have to do because I'm a part of that system and I have to hold children to a certain standard. But I'm also a social and emotional learning teacher. So I also have a little bit more freedom than the classroom teachers, where I can give them the ability to be creative and think outside the box and have that
Mm,
freedom. And a lot of times, sometimes, classes will show up and I read their energy and I'm like, they just need to flow right now. We'll do some yoga moves.
love it.
And then they come in like so like high and like so hot and like they're dysregulated, and you just start seeing them like, bring their energy down, and like how they start feeding off of each other, and that like just evaporates.
Wow. And then it's like right then and there, they're back to their original self. They're like back to, and it's such a sense of unity because when everyone does that together, you're just like vibrationally aligned. And when that happens, you're opening up creativity, imagination again. Like all of this is really just the doorway, to higher consciousness. And that is where all of our innovation is. Like, and that, like what you're talking about, I find to be probably the most important thing that we can do for our children, because, and I know that you're a user of ChatGPT, and like we're moving into an age where in the corporate world, we're no longer going to be hiring for knowledge because all of the knowledge is already readily available. What we're going to be hiring for is the ability to like feed ChatGPT ideas, to be able to come up with things that ChatGPT couldn't have on its own, and to just be able to align with AI so that we can coexist and execute, right? So what AI can never do is have access to higher consciousness, right? It can never be, kind of like a whole group of people that are collaborating together and innovating new ideas. That's what's relied upon. So the tools that you are using are exactly what's needed to allow children to stay in that place of that remembrance of who they are and expand on their imagination and their creativity. Do you feel as though that this is going to kind of redo the school system, and the school systems are going to have to be redone because memorization is no longer going to be valued?
Memorization is so important though. So like I know someone like me, like I work with children to try to still have like a memory. Like certain
Hmm.
activities I do with them. I'm like, okay, say it back to me. Like
Hmm.
let's listen to each other, let's look at each other, because that part of the brain gives us so many skills that you don't realize that you need, and being able to focus and just hold eye contact. So I feel like someone like me, I'm still trying to hold on to that, so
Hmm.
that they do have like the ability to remember things, because you want to be able to remember things.
Hmm.
But then I know what you're saying, like we're still moving into this technology world. So how do you find
Right.
a balance between the both?
I think that's what it is. Because like right now, school is built around, for the most part, I give you a lot of facts that you may or may not be interested in, and then I ask for you to shoot it back to me, and then you forget about it because you've proved to me that you can shoot it back to me. So
Right.
like my feeling is, how do we find that balance? Because I agree with you that, parts of the brain, it's important they keep firing for memorization. Should it now be around, like when you talk about like Montessori, like maybe the child self-selects what a curriculum would be based upon what the child loves innately, like what it is that the child really has from like a passion perspective, and then is given a kind of curriculum where memorization is built in, kind of like thoughtfully.
Right. So you would be doing like these authentic tasks. Like,
Hmm.
okay, what is it that you want to do? Like if you want to create a garden, you have this idea, then okay, you go build it.
Right,
Get
right,
the measuring tape, start doing it. And then
right.
you realize, oh, well, this is 5 inches and this is 4 inches. 5 plus 4 is 9. Like they're just going to neatly start remembering
They'll
their,
innately start remembering because, yes, because they have the practical application to it.
and then, okay, they're going to have
Mhm.
that skill of, oh, I need to get the tape measure and do it, or like things like that when you're learning through doing. Think about like when you're cooking or you're making something, like, like
Yeah,
you're going to make a mistake, you're going to go back, you remember it. You
yeah,
remember things just by
yeah.
doing it naturally instead of
That's I love that.
memorizing it.
Yeah. I love that because my whole thought is like when I see folks be really scared about AI and like, all these different jobs are going to go away, I always feel the opposite because I feel like if you have an idea of what it is that you love to do, that you're passionate about, right? And you want to just make that bigger, you should be able to, like you just said, align with AI to be able to execute it. And so because of that, like you then don't need a company, of like 25 people and 20 million in funding, because you now have the ability to have AI, fill in all the blanks. And I feel like that's like we need to bring that piece also into the education system. How do we have practical projects that actually expand on what the child loves to do so that they're already set up to step into the workplace being self-sufficient?
I think the best way to do that is give freedom in where the children get to choose the topics and
Yeah.
whatever skills that you need to teach.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
children, select or have different tasks that the children could do. And then,
Right.
okay, so
Yeah.
for me, I know something I'm making the children do is make a poster because I'm trying to make them work in groups and really get along. Because
Mm-hmm.
children now, I feel like they don't really play with each other as much. It's
Right.
either they're home and they're on their devices or they're in organized sports. So
Right.
like they don't
Right.
have that, oh, I'm just going to go over to my friend's house, walk 2 houses over and play in the yard anymore. Like
Right.
that art is going away unless if you're scheduling play dates.
Right.
So I'm letting the children work together and I'm teaching them to use I statements. If there's a problem in
Mm-hmm.
the group, you need to use an I statement. Tell them what you need. I need the pencil, please. I need a turn. I need
Mm-hmm.
you to give me some space. Can you
So
move
good.
over?
That's
Just
so
saying those
good.
statements. But I'm also giving them freedom where it's like pretty open. Okay, you guys have to create one class I'm doing posters on anything to do with awareness. And I have
Mm.
one on how to be a good listener. I'm like, you cannot do how to be a good listener. You have to come up with your own title. And I give them criteria they have to meet. And there needs to be a diagram and it needs to have different labels, at least 3 to 5 labels, teaching what it is you're coming up with. Like someone's like, a group came up with how to be empathetic. Okay, you have to come to 3 to 5 different ways how to be empathetic. And then another class, I talked to them about, okay, you know what happens when you get frustrated? We need to come up with different strategies to calm
Mm.
ourselves down. So they have to
Mm-hmm.
do different posters on regulating yourself.
Mm.
And then I just kind of let them be.
I love that.
Whatever ideas you come up with,
Yeah.
get to be creative.
Yes.
Whatever it is you want to draw, however you want to write, tell me the materials you'll need, and I have to get them. So they had to come up with a sheet and say, okay, these are the materials that I need. Here's my own procedure. And then they're drafting it. So I'll see how it comes out.
That is awesome because that right there, it's collaboration, imagination, creativity. You're showing, how to downregulate the nervous system, and I feel like this is exactly how we could rebuild both our school and healthcare system, just by being able to take ownership of what's happening in our body, what's happening, around us, like how we actually, have exchanges with other people and how we can make it about play and fun because we should be able to show up in this world doing the things that we love. Like we shouldn't have to take on roles and jobs that, we kind of put that part away because we feel like we're supposed to be something that we're not. So I'm thankful that, you're even just having these ideas and putting them into practice. And I wish that, there were other teachers, more teachers like you and schools that were just built on this. And I know that there will be. And that's why we have these conversations, because the more we talk about them, the more we actually begin manifesting the new earth that's made of these concepts.
I agree with you. I think that the more people share their ideas and their love and passions, because there's a lot of parents who don't agree with the school system, but they feel
Mhm.
locked in, like, oh,
Right,
I have to do this. Like, oh, I can't homeschool my kid, and everyone
right,
gets like this idea of what homeschooling your child has to look like without
right,
really talking to people who are homeschooling their kid or talking to people
right.
who do send their children to the Montessori, the Waldorf schools.
Yeah.
And there are people who want to start their own communities and really have their own system in play because they don't like the system that is in play. And that's really where you take back your power by saying, no, I
Yeah.
don't agree with this. I'm
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yes.
Yes, I'm a part of this world. You could do that, and I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start growing my own food, which I know you spoke that about. I'm going to start my own business, and it's going to be
Yes.
different. Or I'm
Yes.
going to start my own school, or I know someone else who's starting my own school and collaborate with them. Or I'll find a place in this world that is in alignment with what I practice, and I'm going to work on going there.
And that's how you healed yourself because it was exactly that kind of energy that allowed you to attract to you all the things that transformed your body and your mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See, when you say something out loud, someone sees it way more clearly than me because I felt like I was in the trenches, like fighting for myself and having to advocate for myself while feeling sick and vulnerable.
And you did. Like that makes you a hero. And what you're saying, I wish every single person would hear this. I say the same exact thing. Like we now at this point to create a new earth, we need to be sovereign beings standing in our power who say no to everyone that's telling us to do things that we don't want to do. Like buy food at the supermarket that we know is full of toxins, that, isn't organic, even though it's labeled organic because they're spraying it in transit, like saying no, to this healthcare system that we know is making us sick, saying no to the school when we don't feel about sending our children there, saying no to killing people, when we don't want to do that anymore. Like we have to all start saying no because we are more powerful than the top 1% that would have us say yes when we all together say no. And that's really the point of this entire podcast. So I'm so thankful to have had you on. I just loved talking to you. I know that you'll be coming back after you
I
do
hope so.
more like Nazi healing for me.
Come on, Nazi, say no.
Say no. We went there. We didn't know if we would, but we did.
You did it. I'm proud of you.
Not
And
easy.
that's what you
Yeah.
do. It's just about releasing and letting go. Like,
Just
okay,
release.
I was a Nazi in my past
Yeah.
life. Well, I forgive you. It's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you so
I
much
love
for
you.
coming on. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.